Hello and welcome to another video trying to get you the very top grades. As you know, today we're looking at paper 2 question 3 and the examiners are starting to spring a little surprise. So normally we would expect the question to be, how does the writer use language to persuade? But in the November 2017 exam they changed that to describe. So this video is going to take you through both those techniques, but in particular, what you need to do when the question is about description. I'm going to teach you from one of my subscribers' work. It's Smila Smila. And what's important for you here is that 2 weeks ago he wrote and said, I'm normally a grade 4 student. Now what's crucial here is how Smila is using my videos. So he's watched this one on paper 2 question 3 and then written a response and asked me to take a look at it for him. Now I won't be able to do that all the time, but his response is so good, it's right in the top grade boundary, and I'm going to show you how Smila's got there from being a grade 4 to at the very least a grade 7 student in only 2 weeks. Remember, that was only 2 weeks ago that he told me he was a grade 4 writer. So let's have a quick glance at the mark scheme. So the first thing that the examiner wants is for you to be detailed, and then they want you to be perceptive, and Smila is going to teach us that. How to analyse the effects, again Smila will teach us. But now comes two interesting things which you might not know properly yet. What does a judicious range of textual detail mean? Well, he's going to show us embedded quotations, and then this one that causes a lot of students a problem, the sophisticated and accurate use of subject terminology. So I'm going to take you through Smila's work like this with different colour codes to show you. But let's begin with the problem of subject terminology and what the examiner doesn't want you to do. The examiner doesn't want you to keep mentioning the verbs and the nouns and the adverbs and the adjectives. That's not really making good use of subject terminology. You will make good use of it if you do something like this. The string of powerful verbs creates the impression that. And so then it's important that they're verbs because it's trying to create this powerful impression. Or overloading the description with adverbs slows down the pace. So then it's important that they're adverbs because that does slow down the pace. And then you're going to write in order to, why does the writer do this? Or you might find that the writer's using double adjectives each time they describe something. The double adjectives quickly portray the character as. And then you've got a reason for commenting on the adjectives, a reason for commenting on the adverbs, and a reason for commenting on the verbs. Just naming the parts doesn't really get you any marks. Of course, the other problem is it stops you using the right subject terminology, which will get you marks. I'll show you that now. So I'm looking at the November 2017 paper. You can get this from your teacher. I'm not allowed to show it to you for copyright reasons, but your teacher can. And this is what the examiner has picked out in their top response to question 3. A comment on the metaphor, that's subject terminology. Creating the image, believe it or not, is subject terminology. The string of short or single syllable words. So rather than pointing out that there's a one syllable word, well, so what? But having loads of them together, that creates an effect, and it's your job to work that out. Assonance, so the repetition of vowel sounds is a language feature. Whenever you're talking about the language creating a something figure or character, you're commenting on the language. And then we've got the idea of giving us alternative interpretations with the word although. And the one technique that I keep banging on about in my videos that I think teachers haven't fully caught up with yet, the idea of contrast. And this works whatever paper you're in, paper 1 or paper 2. Whenever you start commenting on contrast or using it in your own writing, you will become sophisticated. And then this final idea, you keep coming back to what the writer is up to. So implying that the writer is blah, 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 and that will always answer the question. Okay, Smila's comment comes from this video, question 3, paper 2, and that's the text that we're going to look at. Let's zoom in on that so you can see it a bit more clearly. This is what we're writing about. As I left my daughter at the childminder's, she gazed up at me with trusting eyes. They watched me back away and flooded with tears as though a dam had burst, and with it my heart burst too. I fled, my heart radiating grief and my eyes not daring to look back. Okay, remember I wanted to show you how to respond in detail. That's in the examiner's mark scheme. And Smila has written 3 detailed paragraphs just about this. You know, you'll get a longer section in the exam, probably 10 to 15 lines to look at. But such is Smila's skill that he, I assume it's a he, is able to get so much out of such a brief extract. Right, let's go straight in. So the first skill is to zoom in on embedded quotations. So those are particular words which you're going to fit into your sentence. In the green, I'm including vocabulary which is terminology that links your argument together. And in yellow, I'm zooming in on vocabulary that just tells the examiner you know how to write about literature. So this is literature terminology, and the green is how to write an argument terminology. Immediately, the reader is made to feel as if the character is emotional and therefore evokes sympathy from the reader when his heart bursts as he leaves his daughter at the childminder's. So you can see how these quotations just fit into the sentence. That's what embedded means. Now we can see the emphasis is always on the reader. It keeps referring to the character, and so that tells us he's writing like an expert in literature. The metaphor here creates a sense of urgency due to the fact that the semantic connotations of the noun heart could possibly be precious. So you can see that Smila is still naming the parts like this, but I'm not taking any marks away for that. You know, sometimes the examiners do include that, but they've come to realise in the examiner's reports that this makes the answer less strong. It weakens the answer because candidates forget to do the other stuff that's in yellow, the connotations, the metaphor, the character, the contrast. Okay, so the reason I'm showing it to you is so that Smila can realise that's not what's getting him the marks. What's getting him the marks are the other bits of terminology. It may be subtly implying how the character's daughter is of vital importance for the character to live. Alternatively, the fragile connotations of the noun heart contrast to the harsh connotations of the verb bursts, and subsequently illustrate how the innocent character is, unfortunately, facing these difficulties. Okay, I want to draw your attention here to this conditional language, the stuff that's tentative, it's not really certain, possibly, it may be, alternatively. These are ways that Smila is showing that he is exploring interpretations, exploring different ideas. So exploring, Mr. Salles, doesn't appear in the mark scheme. Why are you talking about that? Well, because this allows us to be perceptive, looking at different interpretations. It allows us to analyse. It's a way of saying we're being judicious, picking the right examples, and of course it is sophisticated. So it hits all those key words in the mark scheme. Right, let's finish off his paragraph. And so the reader feels sympathy for the character who is having to leave his daughter, his life, behind, and is too fragile to deal with the consequential emotions. So again in the green, subsequently, so, consequential, you can see how Smila is building up an argument, and that's what makes his answer really sophisticated. And the green is part of his sophisticated terminology. Yeah, terminology doesn't just mean the features, it means the language that an expert in literature would use. Okay, there is one thing that I'd like to improve in this piece of writing, and it's this use of the word is emotional and emotions. So these are true, but they are general. We could have happy emotions or sad emotions, angry emotions or peaceful emotions, And so my top tip here is always to be specific, never general. General points, even when they're well written like this, score far fewer marks because general is not perceptive. And you'll remember that perceptive is the crucial thing at the beginning of the mark scheme. Okay, now just like Smila uses my videos to improve, I'm going to give you the opportunity to do that here. So I'm going to shut up and let you read Smila's next paragraph here. I've broken it up into separate sections. But you're going to read that and you're going to try and spot the greens and yellows like I did here. Okay, you're spotting the literary vocabulary that links the argument, that's the green, and the literary vocabulary that is feature spotting, if you like, the kinds of words that we use to describe features, in yellow. So freeze the screen and have a go. Right, well, I hope you gave that a crack yourself. I've now given that to you in my own mark scheme here, so you can check to see how you did. So without going through all of that, you can mark it yourself. I just want to draw you into this final section here, because this is the part that scores most marks. Despite the desperation created by the daughter's trusting eyes, look at the embedded quotation there, that's brilliant, and despite, which also shows an alternative interpretation, her father still backs away, portraying him as cowardly and unable to help his own daughter. Now that's what detailed looks like in the mark scheme, having two explanations to your explanation in your P paragraph, and then here's a third explanation, so subsequently the reader grows to dislike the narrator. Okay, once again, here is the final part of Smila's piece, this time without the green and yellow highlighted. I'll read it to you, and you're going to work out the greens and yellows as you go. On the other hand, this cowardly behaviour could be due to a circumstance out of the character's control, and so the reader is more understanding. The fact that the character's eyes are not daring to look back implies how he wants to look but is forced not to. That should say, there you go, Smila. The verb daring reinforces the idea that the character is hopeless and desperate. The character is forced not to look back at his own daughter, although as she is, his life, his heart. Moreover, the preposition back, we don't need the colon, could perhaps convey how the character will have to leave his daughter behind and now carry on life without her. The writer may be informing the reader of how many parents have to leave their children behind and abuse their trust, so the reader feels sympathetic. So, check out the greens and the yellows. Right, let's see how you did. So, in green, we've got the words that are building an argument. On the other hand, although, and again, you'll see those both look at alternative interpretations. Moreover, perhaps, maybe, again, that tentative language, and then the final so, which is the conclusion. Now, there are actually more examples of the yellow than I've highlighted, but you can quickly see if you're picking up this skill, and you can also quickly see that Smila is using this in every sentence. He's got some green and yellow in every sentence. Let's look back at the previous ones. Again, that's true. Every sentence has got some green and yellow ones. Let's go back to the first one, and again, that's true. So that's a really quick way for you to mark your writing and see if you're building up the same skills as Smila does. Let's now go back to the mark scheme. Well, was it detailed? Yes, he wrote 3 big chunky paragraphs which I've split up into sections. You wouldn't actually need as much as that, but you can see how it's done. Has he analysed the effect of the writer's choices? Well, what word kept telling us he was looking at the effect? And that was the word reader. He was constantly thinking about how this affected the reader, and that's therefore the effects of the writer's choice of language. Did he have judicious textual detail? Yes, he did, and that was proved with the embedded quotations. You need to get those in. Did he have sophisticated and accurate use of subject terminology? Yes, he did. If we go back, the sophisticated bit, remember, is the way you build an argument, the moreover, the on the other hand, the although and perhaps. And the accurate bit is, are you talking about the character? Are you talking about the reader? Are you talking about the narrator, which should be here somewhere? There is narrator and narrator. Are you correctly identifying techniques like personification and metaphor? And remember, the examiner isn't really fussed about words like whether it's a noun or whether it's a verb. There it is as a noun again. They're not really fussed about that, unless you're making a more developed point about them. So if you want to make your revision a bit more effective, I'd go away and try and find a text that does this. It has a string of powerful verbs, or it overloads the description, or you find the double adjectives in it. And even better, why not write a text of your own that does this? That would be a superb way to practice both for question 5 and for the reading questions. If you write text like these, then it's much easier to write about the effects of those techniques when you meet them in other texts. So a big thank you to Smila Smila and to you for watching. I'll try to put a link to this video so that you can pick out my top tips. And don't forget to subscribe if you want higher grades. Thank you. See you soon on my channel.